Hey, my name's Mama Dion. This is my husband, Baba Ra'ama. All right. Welcome and thank you for joining our podcast. This podcast is here to empower individuals and families and hopefully also bring value to you in your parenting journey. Okay? All right. So we have what we think is a great topic, a necessary topic. And today's topic is,
or question,
I should say. Question is, should you discipline your children?
And that's a big topic.
It's a
and
big topic.
That's the number one question we've been receiving. So that's why we're having this conversation, so we can clarify it.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. We need to clarify it because what we're understanding is, and what we're seeing, right, is there is some confusion between discipline and people thinking that's punishment. And these are two different complete things, right? And so punishment is something that can be a part of the system, but it is so far away from the beginning of the system that, that's, I think, where we got to give the clarity at.
Right.
Right. And so discipline is a complete system. And I would say back in the day, there was a universal understanding that parents understood that, you have to discipline your children.
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely a system, yes. And it's a complete system. And what people fail to realize is that it's the major strategy for behavior development.
Correct.
And so, back in the day, that was something that pretty much all parents had.
All parents.
You could go to multiple households and that discipline strategy was the same. Mm-hmm. And, we developed happier, stronger children at that point.
Yep.
And
with skills
and things of that nature. So no, you're absolutely right. That was something that was done very well.
Very well.
Back in the day.
Universal. But our generation, we joke about it all the time. I mean, you do something and before you got home, your parents already knew what you did because the neighbors had this I would say underground thing that they.
Well, right, definitely a direct communication system before cell phones, right? They definitely knew a way of communicating. I don't know if it was like psychic or whatever, but everybody on the block knew what you did at school,
and you knew that they was going to tell your parents,
and you knew it was going to tell your parents. That's true. But it's funny that you bring that up because that speaks to a universal understanding that no matter what black people have gone through, whether it be Jim Crow, racism, all these things, we still were able to maintain that universal understanding of how to implement discipline and how to create healthy, prosperous children.
And so development of children was very important.
Very important.
Very important for the society.
And now we have cell phones and things of that nature, all of this technology, and we've kind of throwing this kind of by the wayside because somewhere in our conversations, it's become a negative to implement discipline, like you said earlier, because it's been completely focused on punishment and restriction. And, most parents don't like that. Who likes it?
Right. Yeah. Discipline in and of itself, even though it's a complete system. And our parents, I think a lot of our generation can say our parents did a pretty good job at it. But my dad, even when he was... had to punish us, so to speak, or take things away from us, right, or wouldn't allow us to go places, he would say, this is hurting me more, it's going to hurt you. Now, as a kid, you're like, no, I don't think so. But really, nobody
does.
Yeah, nobody really wants to discipline. It really does hurt the parents.
What parent wants to do it?
They don't want to do it. You love your children, but then you get older.
But you love your children.
Yeah.
So you want them to be successful.
Yes,
so that's the thing.
Yes,
you want your children to be successful in your 40s and your 50s when they're going through life. You want them to be successful. You don't want them stressed.
Correct.
And you do these things you don't like doing for the benefit of the long-term success of the child.
It is love. To discipline children, it is love. You realize that as you get older that, you love your children, you want to discipline them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the complete system, it has 4 parts to it. Today we're only going to talk about two of those parts. And so look out for part 2. Okay. Yeah. So on today's discussion, we want to discuss the first and the second. And the first one is, what is the desired behavior that you want to develop in the child? Right? Now that sounds like, let me think about what she's saying. what is the desired behavior you want to develop in your child? So as we spoke about earlier, the complete system, it brings about skills out of children, mental discipline, emotional control, being responsible, organization, right? An organized child, making things neat, good follow through. These are just some of the things that we'll discuss that comes out of this discipline. It's the complete system. So think about what are those behaviors you want to develop in your child. Okay. All right. So I want you to elaborate a little more on that.
Well, yeah, discipline is about behavior development. So people get too focused on punishment, but discipline is about behavior development. That's why that's the system. You could think of it like this. You're using the system of discipline to drive and develop behavior within your child.
Correct.
And so, there's many ways we can go about this understanding. One of the things we have to understand is that as a child progresses through life, they're going to be put in certain situations where there's going to be a demand placed upon them to be able to function in a certain way to manifest success at that level, whether that be on the job, whether that be in a relationship, in their health experience, all this.
With a team,
whatever. It could be anything. School, education, it could be really anything.
Yes.
And in order for them to be successful, we're dependent upon parents driving home and developing these behaviors.
Correct.
So when parents say, hey, I'm not disciplining because I don't like it, then what we're saying is that child is not going to develop the necessary behaviors necessary for success.
Correct.
And that's something that we really got to take some time to really think about.
That's right.
Because we're sending kids out into spaces like education to get into whatever, and they're just not engineered or been developed to function properly to have long-term success, and that is causing a lot of stress and things of that nature. So the first aspect is developing behaviors. You may have in your own mind some behaviors that you want your child to develop, maybe based on your own experience through life. And you're saying, look, if I have a child, I'm going to make sure they know how to do ABC.
Correct.
It could be passed down from your grandparents and your upbringing. This is what happened, or it could be anything. But the first aspect of discipline is developing behavior. Thinking about the behaviors you want to solidify within that child.
Correct. It's very important to think about that. And all of us were brought up with different backgrounds, right? We're married, but we come from two different backgrounds, two different households, right? But I think we both, I know we both have stated before that our parents did a phenomenal job, with developing skills, and kind of growing up, you understood what they was trying to develop without even them explaining it to you.
Right.
You knew, like you said, going into different settings, you knew there was this boundary, these guidelines in your head that they had developed in you where you know how to move in certain settings. You knew how to respect your elders. You knew how to speak when spoken to and be quiet when they told you to be quiet.
Right.
You had these boundaries and this structure, this mental discipline set up in your head that developed these skills that we're talking about. So, yeah, very good.
And so, like, for instance, so she brought up a good one that was pretty much universal back when we were growing up, which is respect. So if you're saying that, hey, you want to develop in your child the behavior of respect, why? Because you know that they're going to go to school and be around adults, and they're part of their success is necessary for them to be able to receive from adults, or whether they're going to go into a job and have to interact with bosses and managers and things of that nature until they become managers and bosses, right? Or just in life. If you think that respect is necessary, then you come in and you establish that, right? Or it could be, like, for instance, in my house where I grew up, my stepmother taught us, her whole thing was she didn't want us as boys to be dependent upon women to cook for us. So she decided to develop a behavior in us to make sure that we knew how to cook. So that was a behavior that she wanted. Your behavior could be, communication. It could be anything that is going to be necessary for this child to develop for success.
Correct.
And that's where we've lost, because we think that children are just going to do it themselves. We just give them a whole bunch of love, give them a whole bunch of hugs, provide them with what they want, and think that somewhere in there, they're going to develop into an entity that can be successful in this world. And it just doesn't happen that way.
That's not, scientifically, it can't happen
that way.
They're sent here to be they're sent here for parents to facilitate down to them what they know.
Right.
So what experience have you gained as a parent? That is your job. And that's why you hear people say, including myself, it starts in the home. That is your job as parents. It's our job as parents to pass down what we know, pass down what's worked for us, pass down our experience, our knowledge, because we've been here, most of us, 30, 40, 50 years, and they've been here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, right? And so we have a lot more experience than they have. Yeah, and so it's our job to pass down what we know to our children.
Well, they're not going to get it unless you develop. That's what it is. That's our job as a parent, to develop.
That's it.
And so you send your child out without developing behaviors like respect, self-restraint, independence, follow through. In my coaching business, my executive coaching business, when you talk to a lot of managers right now, one of their major complaints for young people coming into the workforce right now is lack of understanding of what follow through is. Meaning, if you're saying you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, be there. If you know that you have a deadline, fulfill that deadline.
Right.
And if we don't develop these behaviors in the house, they're never going to develop them, and so therefore they're going to struggle
in other settings.
So like even the academic environment right now, the academic, especially public school, is dependent upon parents to do their job so that kid can come into that school, that space, and be receptive and able to receive. But when we don't teach respect, we don't teach self-restraint, we don't teach any of these things within the house, now we're throwing them in an environment where it's impossible for them to be successful, and that causes all types of tension and things of that nature.
A lot of correction,
redirecting, and that's just something
the child is confused.
Not only are they confused, but it causes all types of problems that we see in the world today. So
yes.
So the first aspect of discipline is defining behaviors you wish your child to develop, and you got to know this: they're not going to develop these on their own.
No,
they're not going to develop them playing video games. They're not going to develop them being nice and loving. And loving and hugging is a definite part of rearing. Don't get me wrong, but the hard work, the most beneficial work, the sacrifice is driving home behaviors to make their life easier moving forward in life.
That is right. And so before we get into part 2, if we didn't state it, I would suggest parents, caregivers, whoever take care of that child, sit down. Have a conversation, right? Have a little meeting. What are the behaviors we want to develop in the child? And then when we're going to get into part 2, you'll see how once you write that down and kind of once you know what you want to pass down to the child, then the next step, right, which is protocols, setting the expectations, routines, whatever you want to call it. That next step now is going to help to start to bring that system together, right? So you want to elaborate on protocol, setting expectations, routines.
So once you have established a behavior that you want, now you have to be clear about what that behavior looks like. So like, for instance, if you're setting a behavior that, hey, they're going to make sure they have their room clean, you got to now establish what a clean room looks like, excuse me. If you're saying that, hey, you're going to wash dishes twice a week, now you have to establish what a clean kitchen looks like. You have to establish that as a protocol so that child will know, number one, the goals that they need to meet, and number two, what you're holding them accountable to. So you have to be very clear about that. So in my household I grew up in, we knew what day we were responsible for cooking. We knew what day I was responsible for cleaning the bathroom and washing the dishes and things of that nature. We knew exactly what a clean kitchen looked like. And as a matter of fact, if she or he came into the kitchen and found a plate that was not clean, all the dishes came out and we had to wash them again, and so that was their process. But her mindset was she was going to raise independent boys that didn't have to worry about being dependent upon a woman. And so so it's 2 points that are very important for the second step. Number one is the routine. right? So how many days, right? So 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever. You got to get the routine because the routine, you know, psychology says that it takes 21 days to establish a habit or behavior. So the routine is the repetition. All right. This is what we expect this amount of times. And then, of course, the second aspect of that is how should it look?
Right.
So
model it for them.
Model it for them, right? So like, for instance, for respect, we knew that when I was growing up that it was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. We knew that when an adult was talking, you had to make eye contact with that adult.
And be quiet and listen.
And we had to be quiet and listen. And, you know, once as long as that adult was talking, those are all things that were pretty much scripted out for us. And you felt the heat of your parents on the back of your neck if they were in your presence and saw that you engaged an adult the wrong way. You may have not heard about it then, but as soon as you got home, you heard exactly about and you were dealt with on that regard. So, so establishing the behavior, defining what it looks like, because a lot of times parents, they expect their child to already know. And so they get upset because their child did ABC, but they never establish the routine or protocol. They didn't model it for them, as you said, right? So how's the child supposed to know whether this is right or wrong, you know?
Exactly. So a good way of doing that, you know, I used to work at a daycare 30 years ago, I feel like. And I noticed, and again, in our culture, and, you know, we've lost a lot in our culture. And so in our culture, it was just an unwritten universal thing that parents did that was passed down to them, right? So when I went to the daycare, I could see they had wrote it out because parents didn't write it out. They just explained to you what it was. This is what you do when you get home. No matter of fact, back it up. When you wake up, this is what you do. When you come home from school, this is what you do. Before bed, this is what you do. Like they talk to you about it. At the daycare, it was spelled out from 6 to 6:30 this, 6:30 this to 7 this. It was all broken down, written out. And I said, oh my goodness, there's a structure here that parents always knew about and they taught you about it. But I don't ever remember it was written on walls until I started working at the daycare and I saw it. And again, and that's when we fast forward 30 years later, right? Put it in our school. Our students at the school, they know exactly. And even our own children, we have 3 children, even our own children, they know exactly what was expected of them from sunup to sundown. And we will model it for them, like he's saying. You know, you got to model it for them. So it's a beautiful thing to have that structure and for parents to see that structure.
Absolutely.
And the children to see that structure.
It's very important because they're not going to know what are you holding them accountable to, you know? And so a lot of times, you know, parents can get frustrated and, you know, get really angry at the child because they haven't taken the time and the due diligence to fully establish these boundaries, fully establish the behavior they're trying to manifest and model it, right, routine it and protocol it. And so therefore, the child is in a kind of an impasse because you might have to deal with your child heavy-handedly because you haven't established the behaviors in place. Most, you know, children are very intelligent. They love structure.
They thrive in it.
They love structure, right? And so that's one of the reasons why our school does so well because kids come into a structured environment. It's fair. The kids know exactly what they're getting. They know what's expected of them. And typically kids are trying to live according to their expectations.
Oh yeah. Being intelligent, they learn real quick. Okay, this is expected of me, and if I don't do that, there's going to be an outcome that I probably don't want.
Well, I mean, that's part of the routine and part of the routine. You know, a lot of times you don't have to even get to that place because the routine, the kids love routine and they love it being spelled out. Hey, look, if you're walking down a path and somebody tells you, hey, there's a pit hole here, all right, 10 feet up, just turn left and go around. They're going to do that. They're not going to walk and fall into the pit. You know, that's just being intelligent. But unfortunately, we just never solidify what the expectations are. And it could be because as a parent, those expectations wasn't necessarily provided to me.
That's true.
And so hopefully with this video, you'll come to understand that this is necessary. You have to have the behaviors that you want to develop in your child. And then you must model that for the child. The child must know exactly what you require of them when it comes to those behaviors.
And it's important to note that once you have those behaviors, once you kind of have those protocols and those expectations and model it for the child, at that point, now you kind of create that routine. So it has to become consistent. So whatever behavior you want and whatever you're trying to model for them, you're right on how to do it. You want to create a routine for them, be consistent with them. And like you said earlier, within about a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, right?
You're not going to have any problems.
You're not going to have any problems. You'll have very little problems. Now, as they continue to grow, right, you're going to have teachable moments. And so you will have to well, no, I know I told you to do it this way, but maybe change it. You might have to tweak some things here and there, right, for them. And because all children are different, but they all respect and appreciate what we're talking about here. Structure, routines, being consistent. They all respect that. So just remember, if you lay this foundation between these early ages, it becomes very easy for that child to get to a place where they respect and understand what you're doing for them. And so very good, Addison.
Well, yeah, what's funny is that, like, if we look at the job situation, and I know we may have touched on this before, but how's a kid going to be able to perform in a position, in a space that is structured, accountability, and things of that nature? Where are they supposed to learn these behaviors?
Because nobody's teaching an adult.
Once you're an adult, that's it. Now we got to deal with you, and right. And so a lot of times we put too much pressure on. I call this a sense of entitlement, and that's very big now. And what I mean by sense of entitlement is you go into a job and you don't want to be held accountable. You don't want to be respectful. You don't want to do right because you haven't been trained to do this, and so now you develop the sense of entitlement, meaning you asking the company to change for you.
Right.
You asking the public school system to change for your child. You asking all these different things.
Right.
And really, it's your responsibility to drive home the behaviors that's going to make them successful in life. And so that's where I leave it with, point 1 and 2 of the discipline is establishing behaviors and driving home, modeling that behavior for that child. Your job is to create the behavior within the child. If a child is being disrespectful right now at 5, what do you think is going to happen when they become 22 or whatever, when they got to engage with adults for success?
Yep.
There's nowhere in your life where you're not going to be in need to receive from somebody more mature, have more knowledge than you.
Correct.
So therefore, respect is a skill that can bring great success.
That's right.
It doesn't put you in a position of subservience. It's a strategy, it's a tool for success.
That's
but anyway.
Right. No, that's right. That's very good. Very good. I think we can end there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we can end there. Rama, so I hope we gave some clarity with this conversation. I hope we gave some clarity. I hope we debunked some myths, maybe.
Absolutely.
That you don't need to discipline your children. You absolutely should discipline your children. Schools need you to discipline your children. Teams, organizations, the society, everybody needs you to discipline your children. So hopefully we gave you some clarity. And like I said, we're going to come back with the last 2 parts of the system. Hopefully it helped you. If it did, share with somebody else. We appreciate you watching. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.